Well, guys, the 2025 riot season is well underway and it is escalating quickly. I thought I'd take a few minutes today and share some of my thoughts as this is my first riot season in a red state. Hey, everybody, I'm Julie Barrett, and I'm the founder of Conservative Ladies of America. And this video today is going to be maybe a little different. I think I'm maybe building a little bit on the video I did about a month ago about our escape from Washington to the free state of Florida. And a number of people have asked me in the comments and sent me emails asking, why did you choose Florida? Why didn't you just go right next door to Idaho? So I thought this was kind of a good way to incorporate my answer to that question, as well as what's going on with riot season and some of my observations here in just the last few days as this riot season of 2025 has quickly ramped up. Now, the short answer to why Florida over Idaho is the sun and the beach. My husband and I are both sun seekers. And so when we thought about the idea of leaving Washington State, both of us having been born, raised, and spent our entire lives in Washington State, where it's rainy and gloomy, 9 months out of the year, we both thought it would be really fun to live in a tropical climate. We both also really appreciated the policies that have been enacted by the DeSantis administration in Florida over the last 6 years. So that was naturally the first place that we looked. We made a trip down here and we fell in love. I've got a link to that video down below in the description. If you haven't watched it yet, go check it out. If you're thinking about getting out of a blue state for a red state, I talk about our whole thought process, why we actually decided to leave Washington back in 2022 in the first place, what really spurred us to uproot ourselves and where we had spent our entire lives and go to a red state. So if you're considering that, you might want to give that video a watch. Seattle didn't have its first protests in 2020. Protests have been a regular occurrence in Seattle for several decades, but what we saw with the George Floyd riots and protests were really ramping up to a whole new level. And what really happened, and it wasn't just in Seattle, the groups of protesters and rioters really spread out into the suburbs and even went over into Eastern Washington and really created chaos and made life difficult for the law abiding citizens in the state who just wanted to go about their business. I remember we went to an event up in Snohomish County, which is just north of Seattle. We went to an event there at the courthouse, and it was just a very peaceful gathering of patriots, and Antifa came out in response. And it was something where people had children. I had my kids. They were like, I think my girls were about 13 at the time, but it was very scary. And there was a good security presence protecting the people that were gathered there. But it really made you question, like, is it safe for us to do this? And certainly it's fine for adults to participate in these things, but maybe leave the kids at home. If you're okay putting yourself potentially in harm's way, that's one thing, but maybe not the kids. And so for me as a mom, this was really a realization that my community wasn't safe. And unfortunately, in these blue states that are sanctuary states that allow riots and chaos and anarchy, they don't allow their police to protect the citizens. They don't allow the police to regain law and order to make the city and the state a place where all citizens can be protected and feel like they can travel about their state freely and without fear of being harmed in some way. As we are seeing the chaos ramping up in blue cities and blue states around the country right now, there have been a number of different police departments who have come out saying that they will not support ICE. They will enforce the state laws that are sanctuary state laws that protect immigrants from federal agents.
As I watch the actions taken by federal law enforcement in California and along the West Coast, I am reminded of why I became a police officer. It is my job to support the rights of our community. Let me be clear. The Seattle Police Department does not engage in immigration enforcement activities. We do not inquire into or collect information about an individual's immigration or citizenship status unless it is directly connected to a state or local criminal investigation. This is, of course, the sole responsibility of the federal government. My responsibility is the safety and security of the people of Seattle. We adhere to Washington state law, which limits our involvement with federal immigration authorities for enforcement purposes.
This is not the kind of state I want to live in. This is not the kind of law enforcement that I want my taxes to fund. And so one of the things that was a factor in us leaving Washington state was, what are our taxes funding? What are we actually paying for? And many of the things in Washington state were things that we didn't agree with. And so in leaving to a red state, you want to fund things that you agree with. In Florida in 2021, the state legislature passed an anti-rioting law. And this was in response to the riots that happened around the country in 2021. So this was for us, and for me, someone who watches a lot of policy, I thought this sounds really good. I want to go to a state that is going to be a law and order state that is going to protect its citizens. The anti-rioting law that was passed in 2021 and signed by Governor DeSantis the same year is also known as Combating Public Disorder Act. So this strengthens penalties and regulations to address riots, unlawful assemblies, and related public disorder. It allows elected officials to appeal municipal law enforcement budget cuts, hold municipalities liable for failing to allow proper law enforcement response to riots, and reclassifies offenses like assault, battery, burglary, and theft committed during riots or emergencies as higher degree felonies with increased sentence rankings. So you have a state legislature who has empowered and created laws that allow the law enforcement agencies around the state, city, county, and state law enforcement agencies to do what's necessary to put a stop to chaos and anarchy and these riots that create destruction and make the community safer for its citizens.
We saw it in the summer of 2020. Massive looting, massive rioting in Minneapolis, in places like LA, New York City. It was a total disaster. We in Florida said we are not going to allow that to happen. We're going to stand by law enforcement. And so, you didn't see what you saw there, but we also knew that it's fine to have to deal with these things, but you don't want to just kind of play whack-a-mole. And if this is going to be something people are going to try, we want to make sure that our folks are better protected. So shortly thereafter, I signed the anti-riot legislation.
So for us, this was a huge reason that we came to Florida. As we've been watching the riots happening over these last few days, I've been really grateful to be here in Florida because, we've got this major nationwide protest that's coming up on Saturday, June 14th, the No Kings protests that are it's happening in cities all over the country, even in your red states. We've got a couple that are, I think there's like 5 planned here in Sarasota County. And I don't worry about planning our schedule around these protests because I know if they turn violent or destructive, I know that law enforcement will have them shut down very quickly. So I feel confident in going about my daily business. Whereas if I was still in Washington state when this was going on, I would be paying very close attention to where the protests were happening around me and making sure that I probably wouldn't even leave my home during the protest time on Saturday, June 14th. And that's just not a way that we as Americans, free people, should be living. We shouldn't be living having to coordinate our schedules around violent protests and riots. This year, the Florida State Legislature passed House Bill 6025, which repealed a really bad anti-2A law that had been on the books in Florida that did not allow for the sale of firearms or ammunition They couldn't even be marketed during a time when there was an emergency in a city or a county or in the state. Citizens would not be able to purchase firearms or ammo during a declared emergency. Well, this law was repealed by House Bill 6025 this year, which is a great thing because it is often during these times of unrest that American citizens need to be able to practice their Second Amendment rights. It's policies like House Bill 6025 and the anti-riot law that was passed in 2021 that are things that people who live in blue states, when they're looking to maybe go to a red state, these are the kinds of things that you want to think about because you want to feel protected. You don't want to feel like it is dangerous to go out into your community. That is not how we as Americans should be living. I realize that some people think it is cowardly to leave a blue state and go to a red state. However, the problem is that with many of these blue states, like the whole West Coast, and I'd throw New York into the mix as well, is they are so far gone. They have gone so far to the left, and the Democrats have such a stronghold there that it's really impossible to get them back to a place of sanity and common sense in the near future. I would say we are probably decades out, if not a full collapse, before these states can be rebuilt. So if you are a freedom-loving American living in a blue state and you're feeling oppressed, you're feeling like you're living under this chaos and anarchy and there's nothing that you can do about it, it's okay to consider leaving. And if you can't leave, then you need to be protecting yourself, protecting your family, and protecting your community. And I did do a video on surviving chaos, which I will have linked that below as well. That just has some practical tips for people who are living in blue states and dealing with this chaos and anarchy. This is all predicted. We knew that this was coming. This has been a long time in the making, and it's probably not going to go away anytime soon. I think that we are going to see all of this chaos and anarchy really ramping up throughout the summer. So please take steps to protect yourself and your family. Again, I'm going to link my full video to our escape from Washington to Florida 2 years ago in the description of this video. If you have any questions about relocation and leaving a blue state and you don't want to leave it in the comments, please feel free to reach out to me personally. You can email me, julie@conservativeladiesofamerica.com. I've heard from so many of you, and I've had some really great email exchanges with many of you, and I have really enjoyed that and appreciate you all reaching out. And hopefully I've been somewhat helpful and encouraging for you as well. I appreciate you guys so much. If you feel so inclined, please do share this video. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you again next time.